The meeting will now come to order. Welcome to the September 13th, 2021 meeting of the City of Raleigh Board of Adjustment. My name is Rodney Swink and I'm chair of the board. I'm joined today by fellow board members John Kuntz, Donald Mile, Kathy Rudisil, Justin Sutton, Stephen Kinney, and Michael Rainey. The Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial body that is governed by the North Carolina General Statutes and the city's Unified Development Ordinance. We are authorized to hear requests for variances from the city's UDO, special use permits, and other requests as may be provided in the city's ordinances. In hearing cases, the board conducts a quasi-judicial evidentiary hearing. That means it is like a court hearing. State law sets specific procedures and rules concerning how this board must make its decisions. The standard the applicant must meet to be granted their request is set forth in the UDO. The board hears and considers evidence presented at the hearing and applies the standard when making its decision. The board must base its decisions upon competent, material, and substantial evidence presented at the hearing. If you will be speaking as a witness, please focus on the facts and standards, not personal preference or opinion. Witnesses may testify as to facts to which they are competent to testify, so long as those facts relate to the legal standards. In addition, lay or non-expert witness testimony is limited to facts, not opinions. For certain topics, this board needs to hear testimony. For certain topics, this board needs to hear opinion testimony from expert witnesses. These topics include projections about impacts on property values and projections about impacts on traffic safety. Focusing your testimony and arguments on the applicable facts and standard will allow the board to hear cases in an efficient and timely manner. Since today's meeting is being conducted remotely, in addition to the general quasi-judicial rules, today's hearings will be conducted in accordance with state statutes that allow for remote evidentiary hearings during the current COVID-19 states of emergency. For the convenience of those participating today, I'm going to outline how we will conduct today's evidentiary hearings. First, all witnesses must be sworn in. Because of the remote format, individuals who sign up to speak, as well as city staff participants, have already signed a written oath form, which will be reaffirmed on the record as they testify today. Participants have also provided written consent to today's meeting format. We will begin with staff presentation from a member of the planning department. Following staff's presentation, the applicant will be acknowledged to present their case and witnesses. The Board of Adjustment will acknowledge the attorney or applicant for each case first as the point person for the applicant. Following the applicant, anyone else who signed up to participate in support or opposition to the request will be given the opportunity to speak. The applicant will be given the opportunity for cross-examination, as well as rebuttal and a closing statement. When all testimony is complete, we will close the evidentiary hearing. The board members will deliberate and vote on the case. For variance request, a 4/5 vote of the board is required to grant the variance. For all other hearings and matters, the decision will be made by a simple majority vote of the board. Following the meeting, the board's decision will be prepared with written findings of fact and conclusions of law. The decision will be incorporated into the meeting minutes and will be adopted at the same time the meeting minutes are adopted. We will now conduct the evidentiary hearings on today's agenda. As we get started, there's some announcements I need to make regarding the agenda. First, a new business item, item E, which is BOA 42-2021, 4237, 4229, 4225, and 0 Macon Pond Road. The applicant in that case has withdrawn their application, so we will not be hearing that item. There are also 3 items of old business. Variance BOA 00010-2021, that's 11009 Ingleside Place. A second case, variance BOA 0027-2021, 2508 Glasscock Street. And a third case, variance BOA 0039-2021, 601 East Hargett Street. All 3 of these old business cases will be deferred to the board's October 11, 2021 meeting and will be renoticed accordingly. Now we move to new business. And our first item of new business is 711 Grove Avenue, Westover Green LLC property owner. This is a variance BOA 0076-2020. There's a technical issue involving this case. There's a recombination of properties that is in the works. As it was presented to us in the material we've received, it shows a single property. That recombination has not officially been enacted. So to be fair in properly presenting this case, we've noticed it as a single property, which it is not at this time. We're going to defer this case, allow it to be re-advertised properly, either as two properties or as a recombined property, depending on the timing of this. And so we're going to defer this item to a subsequent meeting. Ms. Hill, is that sufficient notice?
Yep, that's great. Thank you.
Okey-doke. Thank you. Well, we're just whipping right through today's agenda. We're now at new business item B. This is 8701 Six Forks Road. Lead Mine Land Company is the property owner. This is a variance, BOA 0016-2021. We'll start with our staff presentation from Eric Hodge, the planner. Eric, do I need to swear you in?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
Pull up today's video. Is everyone seeing that? Okay. BOA 16-2021 is a request for a variance from the regulations set forth in section 7.3.16.B.2 of the Unified Development Ordinance in order for a single establishment within the Six Forks Station Shopping Center, specifically the new Target store, to have an additional 34.44 square feet of total signage, which would bring it to a total of 234.44 square feet, all of which would be wall mounted instead of the prescribed 200 square foot per establishment maximum set forth by that Unified Development Ordinance section. This is on a 7.42 acre property, zoned commercial, mixed use 3, parking limited, and is located at 8701 Six Forks Road. The shopping center is much larger than this specific parcel that houses the Target. This was the former Kmart site on Six Forks Road, for those of you that might recall that store being there. And they have a new tenant. It's not really a corner parcel, but does have frontage, as you can see, both on Forum Drive and Six Forks Road. The majority of the parcel on the west side of Six Forks Road and south of Strickland Road comprises the Six Forks Station Shopping Center, of which there are multiple parcels and out parcels, all zone CX3 PL. I believe the portion in the southwest of the site is being contemplated for rezoning. This is the Target store, pretty much as it appears today, with the signage on the top image all being in place and permitted with the store. However, the bottom elevation is the side elevation or southern elevation facing Forum Drive, where they are requesting the additional 34.44 square feet of signage to house the Target Bullseye logo. That would be the only signage on the side of the store facing Forum Drive, as they've used all of their 200 square feet of allocation on the front of the Target store facing Six Forks Road. This here on the right, again, they're not even proposing to put the word Target, just the bullseye along that southern face of the store. Our UDO does set out a maximum of 200 square foot of signage for any tenant within a shopping center when they do utilize a freestanding monument sign. This shopping center already has freestanding monument signage noting that it's Six Forks Station shopping center. So therefore, this one tenant, when they moved in, were limited to a maximum of 200 square feet. Had that sign not been there, they could have potentially had up to 300 square feet. So the ordinance does cause a tenant to have a maximum of 200 in those instances versus the 300 that they might otherwise qualify for when they choose to have both freestanding and wall-mounted signage. The applicant has a pretty extensive presentation going into a little more detail. Happy to answer any questions, though, that you may have of me at this time regarding the request.
Okay, thank you. Board members, do you have any questions for Mr. Hodge? Okay, hearing none, we can now move to the applicant's case. Ashley Terrazas is the attorney. You may proceed with your presentation. If you call any witnesses forward, I will need to swear them in at that time, okay?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Will you be able to see me? I mean, I guess it doesn't matter, but
We see your presentation.
just the presentation. Okay. Just making sure. So good afternoon, Chairman Swink and board members. My name is Ashley Honeycutt Terrazas, and I represent Target in this case. Thanks for going over it for me, Eric. And hopefully it won't be too extensive. I do have a few witnesses just to make sure I get y'all some competent evidence to base your decision on. But I'll just go ahead and start. We're asking for the minimum amount of necessary signage to inform drivers traveling on Forum Drive towards Six Forks Road of this store's location in order to protect those who are trying to reach our store. As y'all saw, this is a large store on a multi-frontage lot in a shopping center that developed it piecemeal and kind of an unusual pattern. It has several entrances on two roads that frequently bring patrons. And Eric, if you could go to the first slide. I guess the next slide. Yeah, there we go. So I wanted to show y'all this just to show that we have pared down our ask quite a bit. This was, when I first started looking at this earlier this year, this was what we were looking at initially. This is kind of Target's typical design standards. As you can see, there are several different bullseyes. There's a pharmacy sign over there, a Starbucks window sign. It's quite a bit more signage than what we're asking for right now. I think when I initially did the calculation, this was about 400 square feet of signage. So we have pared it down quite a bit. If we could you go to the next slide? Yeah. So like Eric mentioned, the store's already opened. They were able to permit the signs for the front of the store, the big sign over the front door, and then a small order pickup sign there on the side. But the reason we're here today and our primary concern now is that Forum Drive side of the building. I wanted to show you, if hopefully this works, a video of what it looks like after driving down Forum Drive up to the Target store. Could you play that? Let's, good. A little clunky, but it looks like it's working. Okay, so this is going down Forum Drive towards Six Forks. That's the first entrance into the shopping center off of Forum, but the Target's blocked by this big building. But then after you get past that big building, you can see that side of the building. And there's, this was last week, there's no signage over there for Target at all. So you don't see that the Target's there until you pass the next entrance on Forum Drive. But I knew it was there, so I turned in. And then that's the blank wall, what it looks like. That's their order pickup area for this store. So this road, Forum Drive, generates significant traffic for the store. If we could go to the next slide. Yeah, there we go. I wanted to show you this view of what it looks like. Obviously up there in the corner, outlined in red, that's the store. But then back here, you have all of these neighborhoods. There's Lead Mine Road right there, Creedmoor over there to the west as well. And I'm from North Raleigh. I'm from this area. I'm very familiar with the site. And my grandma used to live over off of Creedmoor. And I know for a fact that Google Maps will send you, if you're trying to get over to this shopping center, it'll send you through these neighborhoods and then down Forum Drive to get over there. So we are getting traffic from Forum Drive. And because, like Eric mentioned before, because the shopping center has a tract identification sign on Six Forks Road, we're only allowed 200 square feet of signage total for the entire building, which didn't give us enough to put a visible sign on the Forum Drive face of the building. The store contains essentially 4 different businesses that are all potentially bringing in different customers. We've got a CVS pharmacy, a Starbucks, Target's regular retail and grocery store, and Target's online sales. But because the city interprets these businesses all to be one applicant, we're limited to 200 square footage of signage total. If you could, Eric, could you go back like 2 slides that shows what it looks like now? Yeah, that one. So Starbucks doesn't have any exterior signage. The CVS just has a small window sign by the front door. And then the online order pickup area also has a very small sign to inform customers of its location, which is necessary because of the increase in online order pickup sales since the beginning of the pandemic. That has grown almost 800%. And Target predicts, correctly in my view, that this way of convenient shopping is here to stay. I'll just personally, as a mom with small children, I use this feature all the time. I would much rather order things online and pick them up at the store than get out of my car and go in with my toddler. Online order pickups are also great for people with disabilities who have trouble walking and people who are immunocompromised and try to limit their contact with other people. And this online order pickup in particular, because this is a redeveloped Kmart, it's in a location that's a bit unusual for a Target store in Raleigh. All the other Target stores in Raleigh have the online order pickup feature closer to where the front door is, out in the parking lot, because they weren't built with that feature in mind. But for this store in particular, that was the only practical place to put it, given the size of that part of the business. And because it's so important, we had to use a small amount of signage to identify this area, and especially given that it's in a different location. So to sum up, hopefully my witnesses were able to get on, but sum up my portion. While we have pared down the signage for the store, but the lack of signage on Forum Drive is making it difficult for customers to, 1, find the store when they come from Forum Drive, and 2, find and use that online order pickup service. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Ken McQuaid. He's a Target architect and designer, and he's going to join us to briefly tell us a little bit about designing this redeveloped Kmart into a new Target store.
Mr. McQuaid, if you would please state your name, your address, and your relationship to this case, and allow me to reaffirm your oath, please.
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Ken McQuaid. My address is 4900 4th Avenue South in Minneapolis, Minnesota, 55419. And I'm a design architect for Target Corporation.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
Sure. Thanks everyone for letting us talk to you today. Like I said, my name is Ken. I've been a designer for Target for about 15 years. I've designed over 50 stores all over the country. So I was lucky enough to get to Raleigh before everything shut down. So was able to come and visit your city and see the site and get some good knowledge about the area. So as Ashley mentioned, this was a previous Kmart, and I'll be brief because I rehash everything. But as you can see, this is a center entrance, and if you've if you can imagine a typical Target store that we would do, from ground up, the entrance is usually on one side or the other. It works really well for kind of the flow, guests coming in and going around and exiting in that pattern. And we have been grouping the order pickup with the entrance just for efficiencies. So, if this were a brand new store, that entrance that you're seeing in the middle would be down combined with the order pickup area on the left. But we weren't able to do that here because it was a existing Kmart and the entrance was all set up there in the center. So it was too cost prohibitive and probably permitting wise and everything else difficult to redo that much of the exterior. But we did add some new glass on the outside to get some visibility into the store and some activity from the parking area, and kind of peeks into the Starbucks area and things inside the store. As Ashley mentioned, we looked at trying to spread our 200 square feet out on both sides. So as she mentioned, because we have this unusual condition with the order pickup there on the separated from the entrance, and we have over 200 feet of frontage on Forum. We looked at trying to get signage on both sides, but as you can see with the size of this building, the signage all got so small that it looked really out of proportion and kind of strange when we tried to stay within the 200 square feet and get signage on both sides. And given the distance back from the street on Six Forks and the heavy kind of landscaping out there, we wanted to just kind of make the entrance as simple and bold as we could. So that's why we took down the old gable brick and made a more contemporary red box with some large signage over the door. So, so I think, that kind of sums up where we came from a design standpoint. We'd like to just get that one sign on the left so that guests, as Ashley said, as they're coming down Forum Drive, they can get a clue that this is a Target store coming up. We don't have a ground sign or a monument sign or any kind of wayfinding sign at the driveway, and so at the driveway there off of Forum. So the goal is to get people to turn there and come in and use this service without having to go out onto Six Forks and make another left and then another left and get back into the site. So if you guys have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, we can turn it over to the traffic people.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're going to hold our questions till after your presentation is complete.
Okay.
But we may have some, so stay on the line.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Trazis, anyone else on your side?
Yes, I do have the manager, the store director of this store here to tell us a little bit more about customers' reactions to the lack of signage on Forum Drive. Jonathan Ricci, is he on?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, he just wanted to, I have him here to speak briefly about what customers have said about this so far.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Ritchie, if you would also state your name, address, and relationship to the case for the record, and then I'll reaffirm your oath.
Yeah, my name is Jonathan Ritchie. My address is 7037 Hazen Tree Club Drive, Wake Forest, North Carolina, 27587.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
Hello, everyone. Just to briefly introduce myself. Like I said, my name is Jonathan. I've been with Target for a little over 9 years now. I've been an assistant manager in different capacities, and I've been a store manager for almost 5 years. Kind of moved around, started in South Florida, then went to Richmond, Virginia for a few years, and then I now call Raleigh home for the last 2 years. I've had the opportunity of opening this store. The planning phases began in March, so I've been kind of working on this since March, and we opened up. Our grand opening was August 15th, so it's been a month now. So definitely has been an exciting time, for the team and the guest, and obviously through opening up the store, my job is to make sure that we're listening to what our guests are saying, whether it's about the product availability, whether it's the signing or the products we carry, or how happy they are with the layout or with the team members that we've hired, and so on and so forth. So I guess what I wanted to talk about today was just the request for that additional signage. specifically on the side of the building. As they've mentioned, order pickup, it just continues to grow and grow. And a lot of guests have loved that we have that second entrance. However, when they're going through that Forum Drive, many people are just still trying to find where the Target store is. Specifically, Raleigh's beautiful trees, although they are beautiful and green and nice, sometimes they do cover, the building. It's kind of hard to tell what a building is unless you get closer. So, one of the main complaints has been, them trying to find it. And then I think it was mentioned that when they pass Forum Drive, when they pass the store, they do have to, make a left at a light and then make another left to get into the shopping center. So I feel like, definitely the additional signage right in the middle of the break of the trees will help identify, hey, there's a Target here. I think it's definitely our community target. We have targets that are, in the city, or maybe it's a back to college, next to campus. This is definitely a community target with a lot of neighborhoods around. So from a guest convenience standpoint, from a safety standpoint as well, I do think that adding this bullseye will just make the building pop and just provide some benefits, not only to the guests, but even to Target, right? So the more people know that the Target is there, that means more sales, which means more payroll to give our team. We have about 150 team members that we've hired, and we're going to hire definitely a lot more for the season. So I always, equate everything to a business standpoint. So we talked about safety, but then more people know that we're there means more sales, which means we can get more payroll to our team, and then take care of our community. As you guys have probably known, Target's all about giving back to the community. So I'm just excited and thankful to be, in Raleigh, and looking forward to the continued business here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ritchie. Mr. Acid, you have a third witness?
Yes, we have one more witness. We have Travis Fluitt from Kimley Horn. He's here to speak about the traffic safety issue that's created from the lack of signage on Forum Drive.
Okay, Mr. Fluitt, if you would state your name and address for the record and allow me to affirm your oath.
Yes, Travis Fluitt with Kimley Horn Associates, 421 Fayetteville Street, Suite 600 here in Raleigh.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I'm going to speak just very briefly about the amount of traffic that we might expect to benefit from this sign. So as a bit of background, I've been with Kimley Horn for 17 years performing traffic studies. I have a master's degree in transportation engineering from the University of Texas at Austin, and I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of North Carolina. A store of this size is expected to generate approximately 3,000 trips per day coming to the store. And based on existing traffic patterns, land uses in the area, we'd expect conservatively about 25% of that traffic to be coming from the west on Forum Drive. So roughly 750 to 800 vehicles a day. And if we assume that maybe 10 to 20% of those are unfamiliar with the store, visiting for the first time, certainly those percentages would be higher now that the store is new and may decrease over time. But assuming 10 to 20%, that's about 75 to 150 vehicles a day that would benefit from having that sign there and turning in off Forum Drive. As noted previously, if they miss the turn at Forum Drive, then they have to go out to Six Forks, turn left at the signal on Six Forks, and then make a left in at the unsignalized driveway on Six Forks to the north. So certainly a safer condition if they are able to turn in off Forum Drive, and reduces the amount of congestion on Six Forks, which is already a very busy road carrying over 30,000 vehicles a day. So just, it's not a huge number, but everything we can do to create a safer condition and reduce congestion on Six Forks is a good thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll just wrap up really quickly. An unnecessary hardship would result, we believe, if Target does not have some visible signage on the Forum Drive face of its building. As Jonathan Ritchie covered, this hardship is peculiar to this multi-frontage, multi-entrance, and strangely situated building that now houses essentially 4 different businesses. And we did not create this hardship because this store is a redevelopment of an old Kmart and had to be designed in the way that it was, as Kim McQuaid covered. And furthermore, this small amount of extra signage would ensure the public safety by creating a safer traffic pattern for drivers approaching eastbound on Forum Drive, as Travis Fluitt covered, and granting Target the minimum additional signage necessary to let drivers approaching on Forum know the location of the store is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, and is the just outcome in this case. And I'll kindly ask that you find that we've made all the required showings for our requested variance of 34.44 square feet of additional signage and vote to grant it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Board members, do you have any questions for Ms. Terrazas or the witnesses?
This is Steve Kinney. I have a question or two.
Okay.
Mr. Razis, is that existing, or that Target sign, the main Target sign, is that existing at the present time?
Yes, it is. Yeah, this, like Jonathan said, the store opened about almost a month ago.
Okay, so y'all built that sign.
Yes. Do you want me to kind of go over the history? We started looking at this earlier this year and realized the issue with the amount of
I
signage.
don't think that's necessary.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kinney. Anything else? Anyone else with questions? Okay, well, we have, regarding additional participants, no one signed up to speak either in opposition or in favor of this case, so we can move to our closing. Mr. Razis, anything else you wish to say in the way of closing?
No, that's it.
And Mr. Hodge, anything else from your side?
No, sir.
Okay, board members, last chance for questions.
Yeah, okay, one question. John Coates here. There is no monument sign on Grove now, is there? I think I saw a directional for Chick-fil-A, but there's not like a brick directional there outside of that, is there?
You mean on Forum Drive?
Yeah, Forum, correct.
No, there's not.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just want to reconfirm that. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? In that case, let's close the evidentiary hearing and move to our board deliberations. Discussion is appropriate if needed, or we'll move to a motion, and this is a variance.
This is Don. Based on the evidence and the information that has been presented, I would like to go ahead and make a motion at this time to approve.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Go ahead, yep.
Did Ms. Rudisil? We have a second from Ms. Rudisil. Any further discussion? Let's move to a roll call vote, please.
I almost canceled myself out of this meeting. So sorry. Okay, on the motion to approve, Mr. Mile.
Approve.
Thank you, Ms. Rudisil.
Approve.
Thank you, Chairman Swank.
Approve.
Thank you, Mr. Kuntz.
Approve.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton.
Approved.
Thank you, sir. That makes 5-0.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you. We can move on to our evidentiary hearing, case C. This is 2323 Hinton Street. Brian McCurney, property owner. This is a variance, BOA 0040-2021. Mr. Hodge, you are with us again to lead us off.
Is everybody seeing that PowerPoint?
Yes, well,
All right.
I do.
Okay. BOA 0040-2021 is a request for a 4-foot variance to the encroachment allowances set forth in Unified Development Ordinance Section 1.5.4.d Romanet 1 in order to construct an unenclosed deck that is 2 feet from the side property line on a 5,156 square foot property zoned residential 4 and located at 2323 Hinton Street.
Mr.
Actually,
Hodge, Mr. Hodge, excuse me, you're showing as a 2020 is the date. I assume that's just a typo.
that's a typo on my slide.
Okay.
Good catch. I was repurposing the slideshow from 76, and when I did so, I neglected to change the header.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
So this is a request for an encroachment. So the Unified Development Ordinance allows unenclosed patios, decks, and terraces to extend up to 4 feet into a required side setback. So the property zoned residential 4 carries a 10-foot side setback requirement. And the portion of the property in question here is along the eastern property line between the house and the neighboring house. It would allow for a 4-foot encroachment. However, it also requires that extension be at least 5 feet from the side property line. So they're requesting 4 feet of relief from the encroachment that would otherwise be allowed, which would be a 6-foot setback for the deck. But they will want a 2-foot setback. So going 3 feet closer than that section of the code would allow from the minimum standpoint, as well as an additional 4 feet from the amount of encroachment that would be considered. This is the result of a structure that has already been constructed, and the city received a complaint about the structure, investigated it, had it not been permitted, and the applicant began the permitting process only to find out that this could not be permitted as constructed. So essentially they're seeking a variance so that they can get permits to legalize what has already been constructed by the applicant. As you can see in the report, the applicant has a lot of information related to the 4 variance considerations. I would note that the city's code does restrict, and that this deck again does violate those allowances and was the subject of a complaint. This is the zoning. It sits at an intersection where 2 of the other properties at the intersection have different zoning. To the west, it's residential 6 zoning, and to the north, it's commercial mixed use zoning. However, this property many years ago was subject to a variance case when the original home was constructed. It did get setback relief because of these pre-existing non-conforming lots that happen to be zone residential 4. They don't meet the, or at least at the time, did not meet the minimum lot width requirements for R4. So they did receive some relief at the time when this home was constructed, but that does not extend to additional structures being proposed at a later date. This is the survey showing the property. Again, as noted, R4 requires a 10-foot side yard setback, but as you can see on the survey, the existing home is 8.3 feet from the side property line. And again, that was roughly 1.5 feet shortfall was the result of a variance at the time that this house was constructed a few years back. And so the applicant, perhaps unknowingly, felt that the encroachment was based off the existing home setback, not the district setback of 10 feet. So there's roughly a 2-foot differential there. This is the structure in question. I don't believe it's the entirety of the structure. I think it's just the portion on the far left where you can see is a different color of wood, unstained wood, I believe is what is at question, where the previous deck that had been there was expanded. And this is another showing not just the deck, but the deck in the foreground that has been extended up to the, looks like to the fence of the neighboring property. And with that, I would conclude my presentation unless you have any questions of me at this time.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any questions for Mr. Hodge? Anyone? Okay, then let's move to the applicant's case. And the applicant will now be able to present evidence and legal arguments in support of the request. As a reminder, any evidence and argument must focus on the applicable standards. So Brian McKerney, if you will state your address and your relationship to the case, I will reaffirm your oath.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Brian McKerney. My address is 2323 Hinton Street in Raleigh, 27612, and I am the homeowner of the property that is applying for the variance application.
Okay, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. Go right ahead.
Awesome. Thank you. So first and foremost, I would like to thank the board for taking the time to hear this variance case. I know that in relation to the other cases you typically hear, this one is pretty minor, but to me it is obviously no less important. So thank you for taking the time. Secondly, I'd like to open with an apology. So this is the first home or piece of property that I have ever owned. And given that and certain expectations of land ownership that I had made the false assumption that I could kind of use my property from end to end as I could see fit, which is clearly not the case. And as such, I made this minor deck expansion with that assumption in mind, which turned out to be wrong. And so for that, I apologize. So I will say some good did come out of it, though. Because of this, I have read large swaths of the UDO. And as fun as that is, I am certainly a more informed citizen for having done that. So that being said, I don't want to take up too much of your time. So I'll go ahead and run through this request for you guys. So we're going to take a look at the overview in the area. I'm going to go through the proposed deck location and the hardships as to why I located the deck in this specific location. The conditions that I'm willing to make to allow for this variance to occur. I have a response from the fire marshal's office, which I'll kind of give some context around once we get there. And then I'll give a recap going through those 4 required criteria. I'll certainly explain them throughout, but for the sake of making sure that we hit all those, we'll just go through those in the end. So Eric, if we can hit the next slide, please. And the next one. So this is the area, for those of you who are familiar, this is a transitioning neighborhood that's located right at Lynn and Creedmoor Road. So like Eric said, it's a mix of some various different things. As you can see, there's actually a low-income elderly apartment complex, along with some of the existing properties. So go ahead and go to that next slide, Eric. Taking a closer look, so my property is the one in red, and then those 2 to the right, as Eric was telling you, were also new as well. So there's actually one home that was spread across these 3 existing properties. The developer tore those down and then built these 3 new homes. Next slide, Eric. From a zoning perspective, it's commercial across from us. Ironically enough, the largest residential zoning in the area is actually the smallest lots. But we'll dive into the zoning a little bit more as well. Next slide, Eric. To get some context around the street, so these are the 3 new homes, mine being the narrow corner lot with the gray house, and then there's 2 next to it being the other 2 new homes. Next slide. Context for the neighborhood, this is across the street from us, the Google Street View. This one is a little dated. That White House has since been torn down and rebuilt, but everything else looks identical as well. Next slide. So this is Hunter Street, which runs along the side of my property. And so in order here, you have a halfway house, a rental property, and then some low-income elderly apartment homes, which will be important later on in the presentation. Next slide. So kind of narrowing in on the zoning. So my lot is 5,156 square feet, and it's only 39.9 feet wide. So if we take a look at the residential zoning chart, I don't meet any of the requirements for my R4 zoning designation. And in fact, if you look purely from a square footage perspective, the only residential zoning that this lot qualifies for would be R10. And if you look from the width perspective, this lot doesn't actually qualify to be a residential lot under any of the zoning designations within the UDO. And so that's one of the reasons that the variance was granted to even build this home in the first place, because this lot would essentially be useless otherwise. And that created that 8.4, maybe it was 8.3, Eric, that side yard deficit from where I'm starting. Next slide. So looking at the zoning continued again, the lot just over 5,000 square feet and under 40 feet wide. So if we were to strictly enforce the UDO, 4,685.5 feet of this lot would be taken up by setbacks. So that's 91% of this lot, according to Raleigh's UDO, would be completely useless, including for building a home, and would be that value would be taken from me. That leaves only 470.5 square feet, in which I would legally be allowed by the city to use on my lot. And just for context, a tiny home by definition is less than 600 square feet, and so that wouldn't even qualify to be on this lot. So this shows that strict compliance with the UDO strips me of 91% of the land and its value that I own. And so I would just ask you to think to yourselves, would you purchase an asset at 100% of the price that you're only going to receive 9% of the value from? I think the answer to that is pretty obvious. Next slide. And next slide. So you already saw this, Eric had in his portion. Essentially, I constructed the deck in two different fashions. The red part is the upper part, which was in line with the stair landing that was already there. And then the blue part is a lower part that we did at a lower elevation to help with privacy. Next slide. So this right here is the driveway of the home. And so this driveway is not in the front of the house like it is with the other two homes that were constructed. And the reason it's located in the rear is this was done to comply with other UDO requirements. So because the lot is so narrow, the UDO wouldn't allow us to put the driveway in the front because the percentage of the front of the lot being taken up by the driveway would have exceeded the UDO allowance. The lot itself is also so narrow that it's too close to the corner that you couldn't put a driveway in the front either or park in the front because you would be too close to the corner, which the UDO doesn't allow for safety reasons. So because of that, and following with the UDO, we had to place the driveway in the backyard. And this kind of created three separate hardships. The first one being it's obviously completely inconvenient, but more specific to the deck, complying with the UDO and putting this back here took up valuable rear yard space. It also physically blocks any other options for a deck in this yard, which I'll show you as we look through some of these other pictures. Slide. So looking down, this is looking down into the right. So this stained part, Eric was correct. That's the existing kind of stair landing that was here before. If you look to the right, we are blocked by the driveway. It is physically impossible for us to go that way. Again, that was due to compliance with the UDO as well. Slide. This is looking the other way. So yes, Eric, you were correct. The new wood was the small expansion that we put onto this. And so expanding towards this middle line setback was our only option. So obviously we were blocked to the right. We could have gone straight out, but what that would have created was an impossibly narrow deck. It'd be kind of like a hallway. You wouldn't put like, your grill and a couple chairs in a hallway. It just wouldn't work. That was physically impossible. Next slide. This is looking down at the lower platform that we built. So rather than going level with this one, we decided to build a lower tier. That way that we could get some extra square footage and it would create some privacy. I was pretty certain you guys would not grant the variance all the way up to the property line. So I'm willing to bring that in 2 feet to be in line with that upper tier so that everything can kind of be uniform. Next slide. And then this is the picture from the lower tier. As you can see, the step down. The thing that this picture really goes to show is the entire deck is well below the privacy fence height. It's completely inside the privacy fence, and that 2 feet allows for adequate space between the deck and the privacy fence for maintenance or whatever else needs to happen. It's completely inside the bounds of the property and isn't anything too crazy. Slide. These are the two neighboring homes. And so this is to show that these hardships are specific to my lot in question. So these other lots are much wider and they don't have the same setback issues that this lot does. They don't have those same hardships. So they have numerous options for deck expansions, whereas I have none, and they have numerous options for the enjoyment of their backyard, whereas I have few. And in fact, you can somewhat see it. The neighbor 2 doors down was able to expand their deck in a similar fashion, but they were able to do it without coming past their home, simply because they didn't have the issues that we had complying with the UDO and having that driveway in the way. Slide. So this is probably one of the more compelling reasons that the initial variance for the home was granted to begin with. So 5 feet of this property was taken by the city of Raleigh to make way for an apartment building on Hunter Street. It's the one that I had pointed out previously. So this took 12.5% of the property's width away, which is absolutely significant. And that's why this lot is so narrow and substantially so compared to the surrounding lots. And it's one of the main reasons for that original variance to build this home, which I do believe gives precedence for granting this variance as well. And if Raleigh had not taken the 5 feet from this property, I truly believe that we would not be sitting here today because I would have had further options. Slide. And so these next 2 slides are just to show that that 5 extra feet was taken. Slide. If you guys want a closer look, we can come back to them as well. Next slide. And next slide. Next slide. So I'm willing to concede some things for the privacy of my neighbor and myself. I'm willing to construct a wooden privacy barrier along that deck, similar to this one, which interestingly enough would create more privacy for both lots than even exists today. So this should help to kind of ease the privacy concerns. Slide. One of the complaints that the neighbor had was she felt that this was potentially a fire hazard. So I reached out to the City of Raleigh Fire Marshal's office. Slide. I asked them, are there any codes regarding the proximity of a deck to a fence, mine or my neighbor's property? And they very succinctly answered no, it is not. Slide. And slide. So just to recap the required showings, the UDO is very specific. You need to show these 4 things in order to be granted a variance. So here's what we have shown. So an unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application, and strict application of the UDO would remove 91% of my property's value, and strict application would not allow for the deck to be constructed at all. Slide. To show that hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property itself, and it's not common throughout the neighborhood. And so this lot's too narrow for any residential zoning district, as I had shown. And this was mainly due to the City of Raleigh taking 5 feet from the property. So the narrow lot, in tandem with it being located on a corner, it forced the driveway to be located in the rear in order to comply with other aspects of the UDO. So when you start stacking these UDO requirements on top of each other, it has backed me into this corner where I don't get that enjoyment from my property. And these issues are specific to this lot and this lot alone. Slide. The other thing we have to show is that the hardship is not from actions taken by me. And all of these factors are specific to this lot. And none of those actions or none of those hardships are from actions that I have taken. And I would also like to note that while it's not required that I was unaware that these hardships existed before purchasing, I was unaware. And I can certainly say today that that might have swayed my decision in purchasing this specific lot. Slide. And finally, the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. And so strict application, again, I cannot hammer this enough, would remove the value of 91% of my property. And the entire variance process is rooted in ensuring that the UDO protects Raleigh citizens while not saddling them with an unconstitutional burden to their landowning rights. And by granting this variance, you're fulfilling that spirit, purpose, and intent in this process. Also, per the UDO, the variance process is specific to the parcel in question and actually ignores the impact on surrounding properties. It's very cut and dry. That is why there's only 4 questions to satisfy. But regardless, I've made every attempt to minimize my impact, including staying inside of a privacy fence, locating the top of the fence line, including a lower level, and volunteering to put a privacy barrier in addition to the fence to provide even more privacy than myself or my neighbor have today. Slide. So I thoroughly believe that I've satisfied all of the requirements for a variance, and I certainly appreciate your guys' time in hearing this matter, and I look forward to any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McKerney. Board members, do you have any questions for the applicant? No one? Okay. We had no one who signed up to speak in support of this application. We do have some opponents who have signed up to speak. First, we have Luke Sikorsky. And Mr. Sikorsky, if you would state your address in relationship to this case and allow me to reaffirm your oath.
I'm actually, yes, my name is Luke Sikorsky. I am the significant other of Vanessa Gray. So I'm just actually serving as a witness in today's hearing against and will be called upon if Vanessa wishes in support of components about her testimony.
Okay, well, nonetheless, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, yes.
Okay, thank you. Then Ms. Gray, Vanessa Gray, if you would state your address in relationship to the case.
Yes, my name is Vanessa Gray. I reside at 2321 Hinton Street, Raleigh, North Carolina, 27612, and I am the homeowner next to Brian McCurney's property.
Okay, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. And one clarification, if you ask Mr. Sikorsky to speak, I just need him for the record to state his address so that we'll have that in the record. But Ms. Gray, you may go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon. I first want to thank all the members of the Raleigh Board of Adjustment for your time today. Like I stated, my name is Vanessa Gray, and I'm the homeowner living next to the applicant. I constructed my presentation as written testimony. On the following pages, there are also photos of the applicant's deck taken from my property. So at this time, I will proceed reading my written testimony into the record. The applicant's home is one of 3 narrow lot neighboring homes constructed and sold in 2018. These are 2319, 2321, and 2323 Hinton Street. All 3 homes were built with large screened-in porches measuring 200 plus square feet with wooden stairs leading to the backyards. As stated in the staff response to question number 1 of this case report, quote, outdoor gathering spaces are restricted in their locations through the encroachment allowances of the UDO. The location of this deck violates those allowances and was the subject of a complaint. The applicant is applying for a variance to address the pending zoning violation on the property. Clear and explicit language of UDO section 1.5.4.d.1.i states that, quote, unenclosed decks may extend up to 4 feet into a required setback or up to 8 feet into a required rear setback, provided that such extension is at least 5 feet from the vertical plane of any lot line. The applicant ignored this express language of the UDO. This section of the UDO allows for some extension beyond the setbacks, but this language clearly prohibits such an extension beyond a 5-foot buffer between the decking and the vertical plane of the lot line. That does make short work of the applicant's argument. This deck extension presents a enforcement violation under the City of Raleigh side yard setback allowances. The applicant's deck extension is a mere 2 feet and perhaps less from the shared property line. The deck also comes above the 6-foot high fence, as you can see in Exhibit A of my testimony. You can turn to slide 41 of this presentation for that exhibit. And Eric, if you could advance to that slide, that would be great. Stay on that for just, oh, sorry, the one right there, yeah. Here you can clearly see that the decking comes above the fence, which is also my property line. You can now turn back to slide 38. As further stated in the case report by a city staff member in response to application question number 4, quote, encroaching further into the setbacks could impact the spirit, purpose, and intent of these regulations. As the applicant stated in his application, the builder was already granted an 8-foot side yard setback variance instead of the standard 10 feet. The applicant argued in his application that he's setting out to use a previously granted variance as a precedent-setting measure to receive an additional variance. Approving an additional variance request such as this can become too easily precedent-setting for him with future home projects and for other Raleigh homeowners. Personally, I used a lot of my life savings to buy my home in April 2020. I bought it believing that the homes were built in compliance with Raleigh building ordinances and that the neighboring properties would remain in compliance with those building ordinances. Allowing for a variance where decking would be within 2 feet of my fence and / property line, as requested by the applicant, would be a drastic deviation from the spirit of that ordinance, which is designed to protect single-family homeowners' privacy, safety, and property values. Case report question number 2 states that, quote, hardships resulting from personal circumstances as well as hardships resulting from conditions that are common to the neighborhood or the general public may not be the basis for granting a variance. You can go to slide 39. Eric, if you could go to slide 39, please.
You'll have to tell me because I don't have slide numbers here. So I'm just.
You might need to take it out of, I think maybe taking it out of presentation mode might be.
I can't do that for the purposes of the shared WebEx. So you just need to tell me to go forward or backward. And when I get there, I'll stop.
Okay, you can go backward then. Keep going. Maybe for the sake of time, I'll just continue reading. According to the property survey referenced on slide 18 of the applicant's presentation, photo referenced on slide 20 of the applicant's presentation, and exhibit D of my testimony, slide 44 of his presentation, the property in its current state allows for other options in terms of deck placement or at ground level toward Hunter Street. So, I mean, I will have to say I was referencing certain slides, so I may have to have you go back some, Eric, and I'll tell you when to stop. I'm just going to keep reading, I guess. Once again, hopefully the presentation is in front of the board and you all can reference those slides. Once again, contrary to the applicant's argument about property location hardships, he is not boxed into only one solution to extend his deck and could have considered other options before proceeding to build it in the spring of 2021 without required city permits. He could have built his deck in what appeared to be 2 other directions, south or south and west combined, and he certainly could have considered other options such as a ground level patio toward Hunter Street that did not encroach upon my property line. As a specific example, the applicant's exhibit view of driveway on slide 19, along with the photo on slide 20 of this presentation, demonstrates the feasibility of building to the west. And in the photograph on slide 19, 2 cars are parked in the driveway. Clearly, the car farthest from the screened-in porch could be parked in line with the back bumper of the first. Yes, he would give up part of a driveway, but he could extend the decking in line with the west side of his home in a manner that would not have encroached on my property line. On slide 23, 23 of this presentation shows wooden decking constructed in violation of the building code. I will have to ask you to go back to that one specifically. And if you can keep going backward, this is in Brian McCurney's presentation. Keep going. Yep, right there. That's the one. Thank you. Actually, yep, right there. That's it. Thank you. So the applicant's photo on slide 23 of this presentation shows wooden decking constructed in violation of the building code. The Latin legal phrase, res ipsa loquitur, means, quote, the thing speaks for itself. The image speaks volumes. In addition to invasion of privacy, it raises a reasonable concern that the applicant's grill, which clearly resides and is used on the could cause a fire that engulfs the wooden deck, wooden walkway, wooden fence, and wooden porches. Having a deck that is a mere 2 feet from the shared property line provides little room for error if there was a fire. That same concept applies to other potential accidents that could occur. It also could give pause to a potential buyer if I put my home up for sale in the future. Since I've contacted the city, there have been numerous instances involving loud music that could be viewed as harassment. These incidents have made it difficult for me to enjoy my home at times. I or my witness can speak to this further if the board wishes. For this and everything previously stated in my testimony, I am requesting that you not grant this variance application. Granting any such unnecessary variance applications would only penalize adjacent homeowners, such as myself, who are trying to safeguard their property value, right to privacy, and safety. You can go to Exhibit A of my testimony, which was slide 41. And two more. One more right there. Yep. Thank you. So the photos on this and the following slide show sightlines of the deck from different angles on my property. Exhibit A, which is this photo, is a photo that was taken at ground level on my property and clearly shows that the deck comes above the 6-foot high fence, which is also the shared property line. You can go to the next slide. Exhibit B is a similar photo to Exhibit A taken at a different angle in the backyard, but again at ground level. You can go to the next slide. Exhibit C is another photo taken from the stoop/stairway leading into my backyard. You can proceed to the next slide. Exhibit D is a photo taken from a second-level bedroom of my home and closest to the shared lot line. The applicant's property, decking, and backyard are on the opposite side of the fence. You can proceed to the next slide. Exhibit E shows sight lines of the applicant's deck extension from my front yard. That does conclude my presentation. Again, I would like to thank all members of the board for your time today.
Okay, Ms. Gray, thank you. Board members, do you have any questions for Ms. Gray?
This is Don. I have one question for her. The applicant had indicated about the possible putting up the privacy fence across the top of the patio. Would that be acceptable to you? Would that be a concern if that was part of the conditions?
Yes, I appreciate that question. With the way that the deck has been constructed, it is only 2 feet from my home, and he is suggesting to put an additional barrier up, which would be even higher up. I realize if the setback was 10 or 8 feet, that could potentially be different, where he didn't need permission. But I can't find that an acceptable suggestion from him. No.
And this is Eric from staff. I just would note, I don't know the proposed height of that, but the city's regulations would limit increasing the height of a fence to 8 feet. Now, if this is something built on top of the deck, that would be different. I wasn't certain if he was talking about a component on the deck or just the height of the fence.
It would be on the deck, Eric.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Other board questions? Anyone? Okay, Mr. McCurney, you have an opportunity for cross-examination if you have questions for Ms. Gray.
I have a question, but not for Miss Gray. I just couldn't get off mute quick enough.
Oh, sorry, Kathy, go ahead.
Well, I couldn't get off mute quick. So there was an original variance granted on this property to assist with the construction of the home, to make it suitable to construct a home. And the fact that the homeowner now constructed additional area onto the deck is in violation of the variance. So he's seeking as an additional variance in addition to what the original contractor had sought, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, questions for Ms. Gray, anyone? Okay, then let's move along to Mr. McCurney, your opportunity for cross-examination, and you'll have opportunity for rebuttal as well. But cross-examination, do you have any questions for Ms. Gray?
I do have a rebuttal, but I do not have any questions. No, sir.
Okay. Well, now's your opportunity for rebuttal. If you
Thank
want to go ahead with that.
Great. So while I feel that the neighbor's opposition stance and statement do nothing to change the need for this variance to be granted, as those 4 points have already been met, and I have clearly supplied all the necessary justifications, evidence, and facts for the hardships to my property, I'd still like to quickly go through them point by point to explain how they have no impact. So first, she stated that because the ordinance says you can't, well, you just can't. And that's not necessarily true. That's the entire point of this variance process, to receive an exception to the set rules based on a hardship in order to protect the constitutional rights of the property owner. And this statement ignores the entire premise of the variance process and this board's very purpose. Next, she insinuated that it was less than 2 feet from the property line, and that is not correct. She goes on to state that it is above the 6-foot privacy fence. And yes, she is correct. The railing does, but the base of the deck does not. And this has always been the case. You could always see our railing from her property over the fence line. And again, we're willing to build that privacy wall to get more privacy than even exists today. She goes on to say that the previous variance shouldn't shouldn't have any impact on the granting of this variance. And the Constitution calls for equal justice under the law. A variance granted to one person on the basis of a set of hardships and denied to another on the basis of those same hardships would violate this core principle. It also gives precedence because those same hardships still exist on the property today. And either way, the hardships have been adequately outlined again. They still exist. Other UDO provisions created new hardships, specifically the location of the driveway, and it still warrants a separate variance for this specific request. She goes on to state that I could have extended it towards my driveway by stacking my cars. This is simply not possible. The driveway was designed to have one car next to each other, not to have two in line. You're also not permitted in any way to extend towards the street side of the property. The UDO doesn't grant any acceptance to that because it does create issues with sight lines approaching the corner, which this lot is located on, which create traffic and safety issues. She goes on again to say invasion of privacy, but that has been addressed with the addition of a privacy wall. She goes on again to state that she's worried about fire, but again, this has been addressed with the City of Raleigh Fire Marshal's office. He confirmed that this is not an issue. And then the part that I feel the need to address, even though she didn't go into very deeply, just because she has entered it into the public record, I do feel the need to respond. She states that I am harassing her with my music. So I wrote a statement about that. That is unrelated and irrelevant to this case. I occasionally listen to music while working on the back porch. It's not a party as she would like to insinuate. And this is something that I've done ever since I moved in, before she even lived there, and is in no way in response to the current situation. When she complained, I wanted to be certain that I was not in the wrong, so I addressed it with other neighbors in the area who were flabbergasted that she would have an issue. Like me, they're dumbfounded by her complaint, and it seems that she's being nitpicky and trying to come up with reasons to have continual issues through everyday neighbor interactions, particularly on these small lots. Additionally, she chose to live in a neighborhood that is in transition, with people revving motorcycle engines, throwing block parties, and playing loud music in their trucks while they clean them. Some classical music on my back porch while I work can in no way interfere with her enjoyment as much as these other things. Again, in a neighborhood that she willingly chose to move into. You can't purchase a ticket to a movie and be upset when you show up and it's not a Broadway show. Not only is this unrelated and irrelevant, I decry her statements and make note that they are both libel and slander, and I will leave that portion at that. She goes on to say that she's being penalized as an adjacent homeowner, and the variance process is specific to the property, applying all 4 questions, and those have been adequately addressed, I believe. And then as far as her pictures are concerned, I believe that nothing has changed for her sightlines, privacy, or view. Prior to the expansion, you could still see my railing from her backyard, look on my deck from her second story, and see my grill from her driveway. This has literally changed none of that. If anything, these pictures help to establish that this is truly a non-intrusive addition. She purchased a home on a small lot. Anyone purchasing a home would be able to understand that because of that, your outdoor spaces aren't 100% shielded and private as they would be on a wooded 1-acre lot in the country. I believe I more than adequately worked to address her concerns through the design, despite the variance process not requiring me to do so. Hardships exist on my lot, and they prevent me from being able to properly enjoy the outside spaces of my property to their fullest extent. Strict compliance with the UDO renders my lot devoid of most of its value. And after answering all the 4 variance qualifying questions, I strongly believe a variance is required in this case. Furthermore, given the burden of existing restrictions, if the city were to enforce this particular setback, it amounts to a taking of property and, in my opinion, would invoke eminent domain, denying us reasonable enjoyment and use of our property. Thank you very much for your time and consideration today.
Okay.
Hi, this is Vanessa Gray. I would
Excuse me, just one moment.
Points. Oh, sorry.
Excuse me, ma'am, Ms. Gray, excuse me. Ms. Hill, we're not, how do we handle, this is not an opportunity for debate, but how do we handle if there's additional question or comment from an opponent in this case?
I think you have some discretion. It's up to you to the extent that you would like to allow the Ms. Gray to address anything with respect to the standards that was raised. I think you could do that. I think that, you know, given the amount of testimony, you might want to just check in and make sure that Ms. Gray doesn't have anything else to add with respect to the standards.
Okay, thank you. That is one thing I wanted to make clear. We've wandered into the area of opinion on several of the comments that have been made on both sides today, and we need to really, this needs to be based on the standard, the very specific standards and factual. Ms. Gray, if you have something additional to add, not in a way of debating, but in a way of adding additional information that would help us understand the standard and how it's at play here, we would welcome that.
Sure. The applicant's position would render building limitations meaningless. Those limitations are clearly within the city's police powers. I would also like to say that narrow lots are not an anomaly. Mr. McCurney pointed out that I live in a narrow lot community. He does as well, and you have to still abide by ordinances and rules that are set forth by the city. Being in a narrow lot does not immune you from that. Also, I have a tandem driveway that is difficult as well. That is something that is also a problem that is common to the general public. And there is an opportunity for him to extend to the west. There's very clearly some space that's allowable there that he could do just that. I would also like to state for the record, you know, I did not ask this question of Mr. McCurney specifically, but the street expansion that he references was done in 2001. His home was built in 2018, and I will leave that comment there. But I would also like to say to that any other home that resides on that side of Hunter Street was encroached upon as well, 5 feet. And so hence that is common to the neighborhood. This really does not present any special circumstances in his case. He wants a deck the way that he wants to build it. And it's clear from the property survey that you've seen that he has an adequate enough backyard. He has a screened-in porch. He has a deck leading to a backyard. In addition to that, he has a front porch. He is not without outdoor space to enjoy. So that is what I would most importantly like to say and to point out to the board as you're making a final consideration.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gray. Again, Mr. McCurney, any rebuttal on your part specifically to the standards?
Yeah, absolutely. No, the hardships exist, right? And they are unique to this property. This lot is particularly narrow compared to any of the other ones, even located on Hunter Street where that 5 feet was taken. It's this lot and the one behind it are the only ones that were rendered nearly useless by it. And according to the variance standards, my knowledge or not knowledge of that happening in 2001 has no bearing on the outcome of this. And additionally, with this being the corner lot, you have that additional hardship of the driveway having to be located where it is. It truly does block all options. I truly believe this is the only option. And I wish, as a homeowner that I had more options. And again, if we were to strictly apply all those UDO standards, 91% of my lot is essentially useless according to the city of Raleigh. And I think that speaks volumes in and of itself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Hodge, anything further that you wish to add?
I have nothing else to add. Thank you.
Okay, board members, this is
Yeah,
your
I have,
opportunity to ask additional questions. Ms. Rudisill?
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. McKierney. When you purchased the house and were touring the house, did the builder make any comment to you about the deck size and why it was constructed the size it was?
No, he did not. I also didn't know until I had to go through this process that there was even a previous variance to construct the home. That was all new to me.
Other board member questions? Okay, then let us close the evidentiary hearing and move to board deliberations. I would remind you that we make our decision not on opinions, but on the standards. There was a condition specifically offered to do a privacy barrier similar to the picture. So we would need to discuss standards if we think that's important. There was also a casual offer, but not a specifically stated condition to remove the 2 feet outer part of the lower deck closest to the fence. It was mentioned as something could be done, but not specifically as a condition. Could be if we think it's appropriate. So we need to deliberate this one, or I'll entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion to deny.
Mr. Koontz?
Yep.
Mr. Koontz, make the motion to deny. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Rudisill, a second. Yes, sir, Mr. Puccini, your question?
Just that I couldn't see anybody. The presentation was still up, that's why.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to deny. Is there any further discussion? Okay, then let's move to a roll call vote.
Okay, on the motion to deny, Mr. Koontz.
Deny.
Thank you. Ms. Rudisill?
Deny.
Thank you. Chairman Swink?
Deny.
Thank you. Mr. Mile?
Deny.
Thank you. Mr. Sutton?
Deny.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move along to our next item of business. This is evidentiary hearing D. This is 5900 Ebenezer Church Road. Nicholas Wisner and Ashley Greenleaf property owners. This is a variance BOA 0041-2021. Before we begin, Mr. Koontz, I do not know how long this case may take. I know you had a time limit. Do you want to continue with this case, or do you feel like you need to step aside?
I can leave. 245 was kind of my early exit. So I mean, at 3, I have a hard stop. I can't imagine. Well, I shouldn't say I can't imagine it, but I would think we can get through this by 3.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Koontz. We'll keep you in the game then, and we appreciate that. We'll try to honor your time.
Yeah, Chairman Swink, this is Michael Rainey. I'm going to drop off for the motion hearing I have to attend.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Michael, for being here with us. Okay, now this is going to be Justin Booker is going to be presenting this. So, Justin, let me bring you into this. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. You can start your presentation.
All right, can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay. So BOA 0041 2021 5900 Ebenezer Church Road. Property owner Nicholas Wisner is requesting a primary street setback variance of 8.75 feet into the 20-foot primary street setback as set forth in section 2.2.1.B1 of the Unified Development Ordinance. The variance requested is in association with the construction of a garage addition to an existing house. The property is located within the residential 2 zoning district as well as the Metro Park Overlay District. It is a 2.28 acre property. And here you can see the applicant's provided a site plan. The red line as shown is the portion of the garage which has the encroachment. The plan shows a 4.75 foot encroachment on this graphic. But based on information provided by the applicant, there is a 4 foot roof overhang as determined by the architect of the project. Hence the 8.75 foot request. And you can see in the dashed line is the approximate location of the 20 foot setback. So this concludes staff's presentation. Can answer any questions the board may have. Otherwise, I can hand it over to the applicant.
Okay, great, thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay, let's move on to the applicant. I think Randy Herman is here today. You can proceed with your presentation, and if you do call witnesses, I will need to reaffirm their oath and get them on the record before testifying. And Mr. Herman, we're not hearing you. I don't know if you're muted or.
Is Mr. Herman there?
It's showing on mute. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, sorry, I was still muted.
Yep, okay.
All right, thank you, Chair Swink. Members of the board, my name is Randy Herman, 5000 Center Greenway, Suite 500 in Cary. I'm an attorney from the firm of B.A. Folk, and I'm here representing the applicant, Nick Weisner. If we can go to the next slide. So I'm going to give you a quick overview, and then I'll call the applicant to answer a couple of questions, and then I will sum up at the end, addressing how we believe we've met the elements of the variance. So this is the property, 2.28 acres at 5900 Ebenezer Church Road. It is quite a large property, but as we'll talk about, most of the property is unbuildable for various reasons. And if we can go to the next slide. So this shows a satellite view of the property showing the location of the existing house. As you can see, most of the property is wooded. And if we go to the next slide, I believe that's going to show, yeah, so as you can see, on the property, there is a stream located just behind the rear property line. It's Turkey Creek. And as you can see from the topography lines there's a very steep slope starting almost immediately behind the house and going straight down to where the creek is located. There's also a greenway on the back of the property. There's the floodplain from the creek. So there's a number of different restrictions, both physical and legal, on the property, on the rear and to the sides. So I'm going to call Nick Weisner now, if we can get him in and ask a couple questions.
Hi, Mr. Weisner, Mr. Weisner, if you would state your name, your address, and your relationship to the case, so I can reaffirm your oath, please.
Chair Swink, this is Keegan McDonald, the moderator. I do not see Mr. Weisner listed as an attendee, but I do see a call-in user that I'm going to unmute now. There's just associated with this user. Okay, unmuting now.
Okay, great, thank you. Again,
sorry about that.
No, that's okay. If you would just, again, state your name and address and your relationship to the case.
My name is Nick Wisner. Address is 5900 Ebenezer Church Road, Raleigh, North Carolina, 27612, and I'm the property owner.
Okay, Mr. Wisner, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
All right, so if we can go back 2 slides, maybe. All right, so Mr. Wisner, is this, can you see the survey here on the screen?
I can.
Yeah, and is this an accurate representation of what the property looks like?
It is.
So if you can please go ahead and tell the board why you decided to put the garage in the location that's being proposed.
Sure. Firstly, thank you everyone on the call and the board for hearing us. I really appreciate it. As you guys can probably see here, and as Randy mentioned, the entire lot has extreme topo to the tune that we have an 85-foot drop off the rear and over 45 feet to the south as well. So in effect, the goal of creating the garage where it is currently is, number one, to give us a garage, and number two, to minimize the impact to the soil, to minimize the number of trees that are impacted, and make sure that we can appropriately screen the home along Ebenezer Church Road. Basically, our goal is to ensure that there's nothing that obstructs the view of anyone going down the road, so you're not seeing cars parked out into the driveway or potentially into the road, and making sure that, again, we're not disturbing any area that has not already been disturbed, keeping it under 12,000 feet.
And you have an architect engaged on this project, is that right?
We do.
Have you talked to the architect about the possibility of putting the garage in a different location?
We have, yeah. Unfortunately, we've gone through a few different iterations of trying to figure out if there were any alternative locations that would make sense. And we've gone so far as to see if we could put the garage a little bit further to the west. And in doing so, we would have to actually extend the driveway all the way to the south, connecting Ebenezer on the south side. We've tried to build it into the south portion of the house, and again, the same thing. Basically, the easiest way to construct the garage with disturbing the land in almost no way other than what you see here, and to not take out a massive swath of trees, would be to have it as it is currently.
And just to orient the board on this survey, north is to the left on here, so.
Sorry about that, yep.
Yeah, so when we're talking about putting it to the west, that would be closer to Ebenezer Church Road. And when he talks about the fall off to the south, that's to the right on this, just to make sure everybody's following what we're looking at. So we have an affidavit that the architect wasn't able to attend, but we have an affidavit from the architect. I don't know if there's any way to get that up.
So,
I do not believe. Oh, sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
No, but Mr. Swinks, typically we require them to be here because they're not subject to cross-examination.
Right. Okay. Let's see. Nick, do you have anything else that you wanted to add other than what you've already covered?
Nothing specific other than we've really tried to do our due diligence, both with landscape architects, with our architects that are helping with remodel of the home. And we really have explored every possible alternative solution for a garage location. And we really firmly believe that due to the extreme topo variance and, again, the minimal impact on soil and tree, that this is certainly the best location for the garage, and hopefully we can get the variance approved.
All right. So if we can go forward 2 slides. The one other thing I wanted to address, which is a little unusual in this case, is that this property is also located in the MPOD overlay district. Because of that, there are some additional restrictions on the property. We had a conversation with zoning staff about this, and our understanding is that in this case, because we are applying for a variance, that we are not required to comply with the requirements under subsection G here. This is 5.2.2G, which would require, among other things, that that the expansion being built does not exceed 25% of the total gross floor area. Our understanding is that that would only apply if we were applying for a special use permit, not a variance, but just wanted to get in the record that that this expansion will increase, if the variance is granted, will increase the total gross floor area by more than 25%. So just want to get that covered. If we can go to the next slide, I'm just going to address the elements of the variance here quickly. So the first element is that unnecessary hardship would result from strict application of the ordinance. So again, the intent here is that the proposed location would allow the applicant to construct a garage with the minimum amount of disturbance on the property. If the garage were to be placed to the side or rear of the house, because of the topography, it would require significant fill and grading. So it would be a much more extensive project. It would also create additional disturbance to the vegetation existing on the site. And because this is located in the overlay district and adjacent to these streams, we considered it a more important consideration to try and protect the tree cover and minimize the vegetation. So that's the reason for asking for this front setback variance instead of trying to approach this in another way. Second element of the variance is that the hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property. Again, as we've covered, the hardship results from the steep topography of the site, the significant fallback on the rear of the site directly behind the location of the existing house, as well as the greenway, the stream buffer, all the other environmental restrictions that are associated with the location of the stream behind the lot. The third element is that the conditions not be created by the applicant. So again, most of these conditions that are creating this hardship are natural features, which are not under the control of the applicant. The only part that's not natural is the location and size of the graded area that was graded when the house was initially constructed, but that was done by the original builder before the current owner purchased the property. And the final element is that the spirit intent of the ordinance be met, such that substantial justice is met and no impact to public safety. So we believe again that the allowing this variance to the front setback would allow other more significant environmental protections to remain undisturbed on the lot and overall create the least impact to the lot. Although there will be a little bit less than 5 foot encroachment into the setback of the structure, plus about 4 feet for the overhang of the roof overhang on the garage. There'll still be a 15-foot setback from the right-of-way and probably at least a 30-foot setback from the location of the road itself to where the structure is located. So we don't believe there will be any impact to public safety. And as shown on the applicant's site plan, they're planning to install additional screening between the garage and the road, so there shouldn't be any impact aesthetically to drivers coming by on the road. Happy to answer any questions that the board might have, but otherwise that is my presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Board members, any questions for the applicant? Okay, well, we had no additional participants signed up to speak either in favor of or opposition to this case. Mr. Herman, do you have any final words you'd like to offer?
I believe we've covered everything.
Thank you. Mr. Booker, anything else from you?
I don't believe so. I think I have covered everything as well.
Excellent. And board members, last chance for questions. Okay, then let's close the evidentiary hearing and move to our board deliberations. Conversation or a motion if anyone has one.
Make a motion to approve. John Coons.
Mr. Coons has made the motion to approve. We have a second.
Second.
A second was Mr. Mile. We have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any further discussion? Then let's move to our roll call vote, please.
Thank you. On the motion to approve, Mr. Coons.
Approve.
Thank you, Mr. Mile.
Approve.
Thank you, Chairman Swink.
Approve.
Thank you, Ms. Rudisil.
Approve.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton.
Approve.
That makes 5. Thank you, sir. Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our last item of business, we waived, as I announced earlier, so we can move to our approval of our minutes, the draft minutes from the August 9th, 2021 board meeting.
There is one more case on the agenda. I apologize.
I'm sorry.
It's BOA 42 Sunnybrook Road.
Isn't that the one that we waived?
The one was the Macon Pond Road was the one that was withdrawn. That's case F.
Okay, I'm sorry. I had somewhere in earlier information a reference to item E was going to be waived. So that.
Oh yeah, that was incorrect. My apologies. Yeah, it was item F, but you read the case number and
Okay.
the address, so I think we're okay.
Okay, so this case is still before us.
Yes, case E.
Okay, thank you. I sure missed that. In that case, Mr. Kuntz, I believe we're going to lose you. I thought we were done for the day. I don't want to run you off.
Well, it's probably best. I don't want to get almost there. And I mean, if it were another 10 or 15 minutes, probably could squeeze it in. But let's be safe and let Steve reside over this one.
Okay, then for this case, let me call the case and then I'll introduce Mr. Kinney. So thank you for the clarification. My apologies to anyone who's still online. This is 2301 and 2425 Sunnybrook Road. Sunnybrook Apartments, WEHLP is the property owner. This is a special use permit case, BOA 0042-2021, and Stephen Kinney will be sitting in voting on this case. So Mr. Booker, you are up again.
All right, thank you. Sunnybrook Apartments, WEHLP, requests a special use permit pursuant to sections 6.7.3.G.5 and 10.2.9 of the Unified Development Ordinance to allow a swimming pool to exceed 65 linear feet as a recreational use related to a residential development. The two properties shown here, located at the intersection of Rock Quarry Road and Sunnybrook Road, total 32.4 acres and are zoned commercial mixed use or CX3 conditional use with Special Highway Overlay District 1, as well as CX3 PK, which is Parkway Frontage conditional use, located at 2301 and 2425 Sunnybrook Road. Let's see. So here you can see the location of the pool in relation to the entire site. The site plan number ASR 0043 2021 is currently in review. And here is a close-up image of the pool showing its length at 79 feet. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Otherwise, I'll hand it over to the applicant.
Okay, thanks. Questions for Mr. Booker on this one? Okay, let's move to the applicant. Laura Good is representing the applicant in this case. And I would note that if you have witnesses you wish to include, be sure to let me know that so I can swear them in at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Chairman Swing. This is Laura Good. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Chairman Sweek. My name is Laura Good. I am the land use attorney for the applicant with Parker Poe. My business address is 301 Fayetteville Street, Raleigh, North Carolina. And I do have Eric Rifkin with the Halley Companies for the applicant, who is here and available for questions, as well as Chris Bostick, professional engineer with Kemley Horn, who will provide testimony about the site plan if you would like to swear them in at the appropriate time.
Thank you.
At this time, I would ask that our application and the presentation be accepted into the record.
Okay.
Thank you. Next slide, please. This slide shows the project location that Justin already discussed. It involves two properties located at the intersection of Sunnybrook Road and Rock Quarry Road. The applicant plans to develop the properties for a 360-unit multifamily apartment community, and the special use permit request, as Justin mentioned, involves an outdoor swimming pool for the community. Next slide, please. UDO section 6.7.3.G.5, which governs recreational uses related to residential developments, requires that any swimming pool exceeding 65 linear feet be approved as a special use. Next slide, please. This is a close-up of the site plan that shows the swimming pool and the linear feet there. The applicant requests a special use permit to allow for a 79-foot long swimming pool, which will be more appropriately scaled for the proposed apartment community. And our understanding is that the board is familiar with these requests for similar developments and have been approved in the past. We also understand that this UDO requirement stems from prior concerns related to traffic, potentially associated with swim meets. And so for that reason, the applicant consents to adding a condition to the special use permit approval that the swimming pool will not be used for organized swim meets. Next slide, please. This is the site plan for the overall development, including the location for the swimming pool. Just wanted to point out that it's rotated 90 degrees. So north is to your left and south is to your right, just for your kind of orientation there. At this time, I would like to call on Chris Bostick with Kemley Horn, who prepared the site plan, to provide testimony about the siting and the traffic circulation. And I would like to tender him as an expert once you have a chance to swear him, Chairman Swain.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bostick, if you would state your address in relationship to the case, so I may reaffirm your oath. Check to be you're not muted.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Great. Yeah, my name is Chris Bostick. I'm with Kemley Horn here in support of the applicant.
And your address?
Yeah, 421 Fayetteville Street, Suite 600 here in Raleigh.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, you may proceed.
Thank you. And Chris, before you get started, would you please summarize your education and experience as an engineer for the board?
Sure. I'm with Kemley Horn and Associates. I've been with Kemley Horn for 21 years. I received my Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering from North Carolina State University, and I'm currently a registered engineer in North Carolina.
Great. Thank you. At this time, I would request that the board accept Chris Bostick as an expert in engineering.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, Chris, can you summarize the site plan in terms of the pool location and the traffic flow and some of the other important points for the pool for the board?
Sure. From a location standpoint, we believe that the pool has been ideally located to provide for maximum safety. It is a good distance away from the apartment residential units, which you see on this plan that are scattered to the top and left of the plan. Immediately to the right of the pool is the clubhouse area, which serves as a screen of the pool from Rock Quarry Road, which is also off to the right. Additionally, between Rock Quarry Road and the clubhouse building, there is a 50-foot vegetated buffer that's required by the code that further separates the pool from the street. The majority of residences in the area, single-family residences, are located off the plan to the right, to the south, and off the plan to the bottom, to the west. For reference, Walnut Creek Amphitheater is located to the north and the east of the subject property. So we believe that the pool has been appropriately placed. With regard to access, the pool is surrounded by drive aisles on all four sides. So we believe from a fire department access standpoint, emergency access, that the pool is appropriately located. As you can see from the plan, There are sidewalks throughout the entire site that allow people to walk safely to the pool from the apartment residences, to walk from the clubhouse itself. And then again, if people choose to drive, they can also do that in a safe manner.
Great, thanks, Chris. And for the 50-foot parkway protective yard you mentioned, will that also be along the Sunnybrook Road frontage?
There will be a planted buffer along Sunnybrook Road. It will not be a 50-foot buffer, but there will be a planted buffer along Sunnybrook Road.
Great. And could you describe the ADA access for the pool?
Sure. Typical of all pools, it will have a lift for those that are accessibly impaired, and there will also be what we call a beach walk-in area where people can walk directly into the pool, so that there will be no need for rails for folks there.
Okay. And what will the proposed operating hours for the pool be?
Sure. Dawn to dusk and during the warmer months, so April through October.
And finally, will the dedications of any streets and utilities to the public be made prior to the issuance of a building permit?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Chairman Swink, do you have any questions for Chris, or do you want to wait until the end of the presentation?
Let's wait till the end of the presentation, if you don't mind.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. This slide shows some of the example signage for the pool. It would be the same or similar as a pool that would not require a special use permit under the UDO. Next slide, please. All right, so UDO section 10.2.9.e permits a special use permit if the applicant makes the following showing. So the first showing is that the use will comply with all applicable provisions of the UDO, and the swimming pool will comply with all other applicable provisions of the UDO. The second finding is that the use is allowed as a special use in the zoning district. So a recreational use ancillary to a residential use is permitted in the CX3 zoning district. And it's also allowed under the site zoning conditions that are set out in case Z2596. And then also, as we've discussed, UDO 6.7.3.G.5 allows for a pool to exceed 65 linear feet with the issuance of a special use permit. For finding 3, that the proposed use complies with other standards without needing a grant of a variance, and that is the case here again. It will meet all other UDO standards. Next slide, please. For finding 4, in terms of the use being compatible with adjacent uses in terms of location, scale, site design, hours of operation, and operating characteristics, you heard testimony from Chris Bostic that is shown on the site plan. The swimming pool is located to be compatible with adjacent uses and minimize impacts both to the residents of the proposed apartment buildings and to the existing residential uses to the south across Rock Quarry Road and to the west across Sunnybrook Road. The clubhouse and the buffers along Rock Quarry Road and Sunnybrook Road will provide separation and visual screening from the residential uses. And as noted, the Walnut Creek amphitheater is to the north and to the east, so we don't expect any negative impacts there. The additional length of the pool is compatible with the proposed 360-unit apartment community. The hours of operation and the proposed condition to prohibit organized swim meets would further ensure compatibility with surrounding uses. Next slide, please. For the 5th finding, that any adverse impacts would be effectively mitigated. Again, you heard testimony from Chris Bostic on how the siting of the pool, planned access and traffic circulation, and hours of operation will effectively mitigate any negative impacts, as well as the condition that we are offering to prohibit swim meets to mitigate any adverse traffic impacts. And we expect that any impacts from a 79-foot pool versus a 65-foot pool would be negligible. For the next 6th finding, in terms of access being adequate for traffic flow and emergency vehicle service for pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicle safety, you heard testimony from Chris Bostic on how the pool will be sited near 2 main access points to the development and will be surrounded by drive aisles and sidewalks to allow for safe access, and how the pool will be ADA compliant. And then again, you've got the offered condition to prohibit organized swim meets. Next slide, please. For the 7th finding that signage is suitable and appropriate, we showed you the proposed signage that is the same as would be for a small special use permit, and it will be designed to meet all UDO requirements. And finally, for the 8th finding, that appropriate dedications of streets and utilities will be made prior to the building permit. You heard Chris Bostic's testimony that in fact that will be the case. So overall, because we have met each of the required findings, we respectfully request that the board approve the special use permit for the swimming pool to exceed the 65 feet limit and permit a 79-foot long swimming pool. And we are happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Okay, great. Thank you. Board members, do you have any questions for Ms. Good or for Mr. Bostic? Anyone? Okay, no additional participants signed up to speak regarding this case, either for or against. I guess you've just wrapped up your presentation, Ms. Good, but there's any final thoughts you want to share?
No, thank you, Chairman Sweet.
Mr. Booker, anything else from you?
No.
Okay, board members, last chance. Then let's close the evidentiary hearing and move to the board. Remember, there is a condition that has been offered. If you make a motion, you need to cite the condition. The condition will be that the pool will be not, if you wish to do so, it's not a requirement, it's been offered. The pool will not be used for an organized swim meets. So discussion, a motion. I will make a motion to, we approve this case with a condition as offered that the pool will not be used for organized swim meets. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Mile. We have a motion to approve with a condition and a second. Any further discussion? Then let's move to our roll call vote, please.
Thank you. On the motion to approve with the condition, Chairman Swink,
Approve.
Mr. Mile,
Approve.
thank you, Ms. Sutton, Mr. Sutton, sorry.
Yeah, approve with condition, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Rudisill.
Approve with condition.
Thank you, and
Mr. Kenny.
Mr. Kenny, thank you.
Approve with conditions.
Thank you, sir. That makes 5.
Okay, special use permit with condition has been approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, assuming I've not missed any other cases, let's move to our draft minutes from the August 9th meeting that have been provided to you, proposed minutes. Any additions, corrections, or a motion to approve? Ms. Rudisill?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton. We have a motion to approve and a second. Roll call vote for approving the minutes, please.
Thank you. On the roll call to approve, Ms. Rudisill.
Approve.
Mr. Sutton.
Approved.
Thank you. Chairman Swink.
Approve.
Mr. Mile.
Approve.
Mr. Kenny. Thank you. I heard that. That makes 5.
Good. Thank you much. Okay, Ms. Hill, Catherine, anything from you today?
No, nothing new to report. As you guys can tell, you're back virtual, which means we're doing all those additional procedures that we did with the sign up period and everything beforehand. So, and I have no idea when that will switch back. So.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, those 3 old business cases had not been, if you will, properly advertised because we didn't announce that we were moving to a virtual meeting. So that's why they got booted. So we'll get to all that eventually. They don't go away. Anyone else have any business they wish to share with us today? Well, again, sorry we're back virtual, but let's do what we have to do. Thank you all for a good discussion today. Really interesting case today. One of the first where we've had real debate, if you will, that was very challenging and interesting for us. So thank you for your careful deliberation on all the cases, but that one in particular. In that case, we stand adjourned.
Bye-bye.